Hello, welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Dog Trainer. My name is Bethany. I'm a trainer at Walking Dog Training. I just sometimes think, well, if you're new here, maybe knowing that would be helpful. Um, this episode, I'm really excited to talk to you about the dog that I have in for training, JAX. He is pushy. He is young. He's about 2. He's reactive. He's anxious. He is intense. He goes into the top 5 most challenging dogs I've ever worked with. And the thing I love first, before I always, if I ever forget, it makes me feel really bad because I got back into podcasting because my dad, he passed away in November of 2023 unexpectedly. The hardest thing I've ever been through in my entire life. Not going to cry. And it inspired me to get back into podcasting because he had a podcast that he loved and would share with his friends and coworkers and family. And I know he would love if I was doing this. So kind of just to keep his spirit alive as much as possible. And he's with me all the time. My sign for him is a hawk. Have I shared that with you yet? Okay, I'm getting so distracted, but I'll say this little thing to him where he would always say, I've got my cup of joe, I'll wait for you to get yours. And I thought it was just so cute because one, he would never wait for anyone to do anything because it's a podcast. So if you say, I'll wait for you to get yours, you can't just sit there in silence. But I always thought it was so cute. So I wanted to add that into my podcast. But my before I get into this, and just in hopes that this is helpful for anyone else who is struggling with the loss of someone, and grief is wild. It is the most weird, crazy, emotional roller coaster of a experience that I've ever been through is the loss of him. And okay, so when he was in the hospital, he was in there for about 2 weeks. I apologize. I apologize if I've already said this to you. I don't like repeating stuff, but one of my friends texted me, and it's one of the best things anyone said to me. She said, "Come up with a sign for him." And I was going through some of his books. He wrote a lot of things in his books, and I came across this like little folder that he had, and he wrote on it stats about a hawk. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. And that happened that morning, or maybe the day before. My friend said this to me. And I remember saying to my family, like my mom and brother, like, this is just the funniest thing ever. Like the wingspan of a hawk. It was like a cool little quote about a hawk, how a hawk, doesn't pay attention to anyone else, any other nests except their own. I don't know. It was just like these different stats about a hawk. And I can picture my dad Googling. He was not very techie, somehow finding information about a hawk and jotting down these things. And it just made me giggle. And so when my friend said that, I was like, a hawk, that's going to be my sign. I've never noticed hawks ever before. I mean, I've seen one every now and then. And later that day, Bobby and I were driving because getting out of the hospital and driving in neighborhoods that we like was very comforting. We were driving and came up to a stop sign, and a hawk swooped down and landed on the stop sign right next to us. And it's still, sometimes I feel like I get these like signs, and that was one of them where it just felt like, what in the, like, what? It makes you feel kind of crazy. And also like, it's the coolest thing ever and very connected. And, yeah, it was just one of those moments where I was like, I'm never going to question things again. I'm just going to be like, this is a sign from my dad. And you know, I accept it, and it just makes me feel really good. And so anytime I see a hawk, it feels like a sign from him. So anyway, this podcast is because of my dad. So here we are. Okay, so hopefully by now you know that I like to share about e-collar work in a way, e-collar training in a way that is very, um, it's like an open conversation. It's sharing the good stuff, how it can really help you transform things with your dog. There's so many misconceptions out there, and I want to be very transparent. That's the thing. I want to be transparent about e-collar training and how sometimes it can be tougher. That's why I talk so much about like reactivity and e-collar levels. The e-collar that I use that I recommend is the Mini Educator. It has 100 levels. There's that one, and then micro mini educator, which is great for like small dogs. And I'll add in the show notes a link to our e-collar cheat sheet. It's a free guide where it's like the basic things I think I would want to know, or I really want you to know, plus links to some highlights of dogs I've worked with on Instagram. I just share so much stuff on Instagram, and so, but it's like all over the place. So I'm hopeful that that free guide can help you get started. And then we have our main guide, which is like the blueprint to e-collar training. It's our e-collar starter guide that also includes a video library where you can hear me using the e-collar. I think it's really reassuring for you in the process, because that is the thing. I know when I first got into e-collar training, I wanted to know exactly when trainers were using it, and like you just want to know all that stuff. So that is all in our bigger e-collar starter guide, kind of like a course, go at your own pace, kind of a thing. So, but in this podcast, I like sharing kind of the behind the scenes stuff. And like the dog I have in right now, JAX, he's challenging me a lot. And the thing I think is helping me in this process is I can be very transparent with the owner. That is something in my program and how I am, where I only want to work with owners who are okay with that. And I usually get a feel in the beginning. I also only work with owners who are following on Instagram. Like I have, this is my 7th year going into being a trainer, and I've learned things along the way. And that those different things are just helpful. It helps an owner trust me 100%. And that's really important to me, so that I can call an owner and be like, hey, this is what's going on with JAX today. I just want to kind of talk things through with you, get on the same page. And I've already talked with the owner twice on a phone call. And it's really nice. It's like talking with a friend, which is always so great with this process when you have a really challenging dog. So JAX, if you're not following on Instagram and you're just listening on here, go take a look at his highlight. I'm probably going to jump into a second highlight of his here pretty soon. So Friday will be a week that he's been with me. I'm just trying to share so much. So anytime I have like a story on Instagram, which those can be like a minute long, I add it to his highlight. But there's so much I'm really not sharing on Instagram because there's just a lot of nuance to working with a dog like him. And so I'm hopeful that by sharing some things that have been really helpful for him and the why behind it and the e-collar stuff, I'm hopeful you can take little pieces of it for you and your dog, and you can make some progress on your end, because I think you can totally do e-collar training with your dog. I'm a huge advocate of that. I think you owners are smarter than a lot of people think you are. I'm not a rocket scientist as a dog trainer. I think there is some nuance where, like with JAX, I think an owner would struggle working with him. I think I'm seeing more progress a little quicker because of my experience working with dogs. But that's why I want to share on this podcast things with you in hopes that, I don't know, I help you kind of move the needle forward a little bit. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been doing so far this first week. So today is Thursday. Tomorrow will be a week that I've been working with him, and he'll be with me for 2 weeks. So, and then I'm going to jump into some questions that you asked me over on Instagram about him specifically, and then some stuff about your dogs as well. So I hope this is helpful. Okay, so day one, the one thing I noticed about JAX that I just didn't know about him is that he is a consistent whiner, just whining all the time. I think I've only worked with one other dog like this. And for me, as a trainer, this is something for other trainers out there. And I like being honest about this because, one, I'm very honest with the owner. So I think this is just a side note for trainers listening. I do not recommend sharing stuff on Instagram with your community on there if you haven't talked with the owner. So I've just been very honest with the owner. One, because I think it's nice sometimes for owners to hear that they're not the only ones experiencing things. But I also never want an owner to think that their dog is totally stressing me out, because I know that would make someone feel really bad. So, but whining triggers me big time. I feel like it sucks the energy out of me. So I've learned over the years I have to be very mindful. With JAX here, I'm taking breaks for sure, utilizing the kennel with him after I go on a walk with him or I do a session with him, so that I can take mental breaks and watch the Great British Bake Off, which is very calming for me, or just lay and watch like a mindless TV. It's usually TV. That's how I relax. But it's funny, my Aura ring, those of you who have an Aura ring, The first couple of days he was here, my ring told me, "You're experiencing more stress than normal." And I was like, yeah, that's hilarious because I don't feel stressed, but I felt depleted, like just exhausted. And I think it's because um, I really am not stressed. There have been other dogs where it's like, I question if I wanted to do this as a dog trainer ever again because it can feel so depleting and it's like nails on a chalkboard at sometimes. So, but with Jax this time around, she's interesting as like a trainer who's been doing this for a while. And hopefully it's good insight for another trainer or an owner if you're feeling like I'm feeling depleted from my dog's whining. It goes all around. It's with owners and trainers. So hopefully it helps you feel a little less alone. Um, but with him, I'm like, he's making the first like 3 or 4 days of him being here because the whiny stuff was more uh, apparent. And now it's like minimizing every single day, which is so great. And I'll talk about how we did that. But I think it made me more aware of all noises, like Bobby chewing in the kitchen the other day. And I was like, can you go in a different room and chew? Because I can't handle the noise. I hear it. It sounds so loud. So stuff like that, where it's just making me, now I'm feeling much more calm because um, he's really calming down, which is just so cool. So, okay, let's go into with him what's been helping, especially with the e-collar. So, day one, a big thing for me with a dog like him who is just all over the place, who's known to be very pushy, who wants to jump up on you and very whiny. It's like a very kind of manic excitement. I like to try and de-escalate a dog. So take their excitement level from 25 to 10, just to kind of see some kind of slow down. So one way that I did that was a threshold exercise where I use the e-collar. I really just introduce it where I'm try, kind of quote unquote introduce it. It's not like an intro session. It's more like I find his working level and then I use that level for this exercise. So it's walking up to a doorway. Most dogs like him want to rush out of doorways, kennel, porch door, back door, front door. I usually use our back door because it's a contained area. And we walk up to the threshold and I tap when when he like comes up to the threshold and he goes through. So he feels it. Okay, felt it. I want to see some kind of a reaction. If I don't, I dial up a little bit. We went back towards the door and it's kind of like that over and over. And I start to see a shift in him where it's like he's aware of the level and he's recognizing that that's a boundary. So it slows him down. So instead of blowing through that doorway, he just pauses. And so that's what I'm looking for with an exercise like that, is taking him from like all over the place to, oh, I'm aware of you. I'm aware of this boundary. Let me slow down. That's all I'm looking for. I don't even say anything when I'm doing it. It's just using the e-collar as a boundary. I'm really not even using the leash very much. I prefer to have like a looser leash so that I can let the e-collar do the talking. So that was one session. That was on drop-off day, which kind of slowed him down. He was still kind of whiny and all of that, but um, that stuff takes time. So that was one thing that helped. Another thing was I put him in the kennel and I used the e-collar to interrupt the whining. So initially with him, because I'm going to talk with you about levels with him and how he is just pretty intense, where I might have to switch from the e-collar I'm using to a different one. But in the beginning, he was very sensitive. So with his whining and barking in the kennel around his working level, which was like 7, 8, maybe 6, that meant something to him. And it would kind of snap him out of that loop of like whining, 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 barking, 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 and just like spiraling out. So you're thinking of the e-collar as a way to just be like, hey, psh, relax, just to snap him out of that like loop of anxiety. And it's really more of like an excited anxiety. Like I shared over on Instagram, because I was sharing, again, you can go look at his highlight on Instagram, JAX. And I got some messages from people saying, why don't you take him to a vet behaviorist and put him on medication? His anxiety seems really bad. To me, what I'm finding is his anxiety is not bad. It's more of an anticipatory excitement kind of a thing. Whiny stuff usually presents itself as, it seems like anxiety. And I think I even said that a few times, like he's anxious. What I'm finding though is he's great in the kennel, great with minimal distractions. It's just his whiny stuff is very like, he's a working breed. He reminds me of a border collie, he's an Australian shepherd and the owner got him from a breeder, but he just reminds me so much of like a Springer Spaniel, border collie. And Aussies I know are they are like that working breed, herding, Herding, like sheep and stuff. And he has that intensity, that like primal thing about him. So the whiny stuff to me is like, give me something to do. You have to tell me to slow down. Otherwise, my brain is just on all the time. And he's been practicing this for a long time. Again, no shaming owners here. None of us knew this stuff until we knew it. I was telling the owner because she was feeling bad, like I feel bad I didn't do more with him or expose him to more stuff or whatever. And I was like, listen, before I knew about any of this dog training stuff, I had a weenie dog named Toby who had severe separation anxiety. I took him with me everywhere. So then when I would leave, he would tear up the blinds. He would get himself into like such a mess. And the older he got, it was very stressful for me because I'd come back and he was just like drool all over him. He was panting. He was just so anxious. And it broke my heart because he was so upset when I'd leave. So I think a lot of us have been there. Some of us maybe are right now, and we're just kind of diving into balance training or looking for some help. So you don't know until you know. And so, but let me just say, JAX's owner is amazing and she's willing to do all the work or continue the work. One great thing she said, because another thing about dogs like JAX, could he benefit from a longer training program? Sure. But I don't want training dogs in my house for longer than 2 weeks. Sometimes I will have them for 3 weeks if I feel it's necessary. But with JAX, I think, and with all the dogs I work with through my training program, and this isn't to say another trainer shouldn't have longer programs, you do what feels right for you. Try different things, try different time frames, see what works. I do what I do because it works for the owners that I personally work with. That is just from my experience and the feedback that I get because I'm very uh, I don't know. That's why I do this, to help owners thrive with their dogs when they get home. It's not so much what I can do with them, it's what I can empower the owner to do with their dog when they get back. And his owner said the perfect thing. She said, "I can't wait to continue this at home." That's exactly what it is. So I'm so excited for her to do that. So with Jax, the thing I'm finding with him, and it's just so interesting because Bethany, as a dog trainer 2 years ago, and this one, I hope, speaks to the owner who's working with their dog, doing the things, and you feel like you're not seeing progress. Bethany, 2 years ago, with a dog like this, would have questioned, am I the right trainer for this dog? Because I'm not, because he's challenging me. And I'm not seeing like the quick kind of progress stuff that sometimes you can see with other dogs. Because sometimes with some dogs, it seems like very quick progress, where other dogs, it's a long game. And that's usually with like the more nervy, anxious dogs, I find, that I have found from experience over the course of 2 weeks for me, because that's just like my time frame that I have. uh, it's like a slow trickle. So for you with your dog, look at this. Like, I swear, if you start to notice, I've been calling them training glimmers because I didn't come up with this. It's just, I heard someone else say glimmers during your day. It's like noticing the good stuff, like, gratitude, all that good stuff. So with me, training glimmers is like noticing those small things because they seriously make such a difference. It's not always the big things, the big transformations. It's more like the small moments of your dog being on place and settling a little bit quicker. Or with Jax, it's just such a funny little example. But in our pool, we have a pool in our backyard, and the first few days, when I'd get to it, I'd walk with him around the pool in the morning after he'd pee, and we'd get to the other side of the pool, and he'd be whiny, 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 and it's less and less when we get to that other side of the pool. It's like such a weird small thing, but I like to repeat stuff daily so that I can see, do I notice any progress? And how I've been able to notice progress is to replicate, even like where we walk, when I do place with him, that kind of thing. So for me, I'm noticing the small little moments, and each day, like the whiny stuff, that's just such a physical, it's like you can hear it, kind of a manifestation of all of his overexcitement. So when that starts to minimize, it's just so nice to see. Some of you have messaged me on Instagram saying when I share a picture of him or something, and you're like, his eyes look so much more relaxed. Because in one of the first videos I shared of him on place, his eyes were like bugging out of his head. He's just such a, I guess this is a common thing with Aussies. Someone sent me a video of their Aussie staring at them. It was just so funny because it's so intense. And I haven't really worked with a dog who's like this. I have worked with a border collie, Ryder. If anyone wants to go look at his highlights, he was extremely reactive and one of my favorite dogs I've ever worked with because he was so primal. There's just something different about a primal dog that like reminds me of like a wolf, or I don't know, just getting back to, we have dogs, like actual animals in our home. It's just a good reminder that they are dogs. It's harder to see that with like I don't know, like Susie I had in recently, who's like a little rat terrier mix, and she was adorable and uh, just so sweet and pretty easy. And then I get a dog like JAX, and it's like, oh my goodness, they are actual animals. So anyway, so something else. So those are the two things that I did on day one that helped to de-escalate him, take him from that like high manic anxiety to, or energy, excitement, whatever, to a little bit calmer. Another thing that made a big difference, one was on the walk, was addressing the reactivity. So I've talked about how I address reactivity with the e-collar. I'll link that episode below, but it's, what is it, like reactivity masterclass, addressing reactivity on the walk, where I talk about how I do this. And so with him, because his reactivity is so intense, I wanted to correct with the e-collar the actual reactivity. So letting him react and correcting that. And I did that. I started, I think, at level 80 and then went up to 100. 100 is the level that meant something to him. And he stopped reacting, came back over. That's like when you do that, that doesn't mean that it just stops and your dog is like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to be such a good dog on the walk now. Then it's like all the other things bubble to the surface, the whiny stuff, the anxiety, the anticipation, all of that. So you address the big moment. Now it's, okay, let's take care of these smaller things. So that was really helpful. He has not reacted to a dog on the walk since. He is still a little bit excitable, but now that there's no like reacting, lunging, and barking, which is the great thing about using an e-collar, you can address it in a really effective way. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. There's like this thing where sometimes when people don't want you to think the e-collar training is like this big evil thing, they'll say, it doesn't hurt. Well, yes, it can be very uncomfortable. So 100 on the e-collar is uncomfortable. For a dog like JAX, who's so intense with his reactivity, it's meaningful. It's not even like 100 for a little dog like Susie. That would be a lot. And not to say that can't have its place, but with JAX, please note or hear me when I say this, he's very intense. Not all dogs need level 100 on the e-collar. I do share openly about that with the dogs I've worked with who did need 100 on the e-collar, because I think it's just important for you to hear it, to know about that, so that when you use level 45, you're like, well, Bethany used 100. 45 meant something to my dog. I don't feel like a terrible person. Now I can enjoy walks and I've worked through the reactivity. That's all I'm looking for. I just want to empower you, to give you the knowledge in a way that is relatable and it works. But I know it can be scary. So there's a lot of information out there. So that was one thing that really helped on the walk. And then the other thing that was really helpful was in the backyard, we have these two chaise lounge chairs. And so if you think about JAX as like this overexcitable, like he wants to like jump on you and be like in your skin kind of a thing. Like it's just a very manic, anxious beat on you kind of a thing, which to me, it's pushy. Some people might look at that and be like, oh, he really wants to be like with you. No, it's a pushy thing that is not helping him. If I were to let him jump up on me and like pet him, I would just be reinforcing that. So my job as a trainer is to create clear boundaries so that we can add clarity to every situation, a clear no, so that then I can say yes to more things. That is how this training goes. When you create boundaries with your dog, then it opens up so many more opportunities for you to enjoy with your dog. It's like, that's how it goes. But with him, so I was in the backyard, usually standing, and then I sat on that chair and he went to go jump up on me. in a very like frantic, not aggressive, but like frantic way. And I had my e-collar because I'm always ready to address certain situations. That is something when you're working with your dog, please always have the e-collar with you initially so that you can follow through in certain moments. It makes you become more believable to your dog. So I tapped, I think I started like around, because that's a bigger, it's like a quote unquote louder moment. So I need a level that kind of matches that. I don't want to underwhelm him because I don't want to have to keep using the e-collar for this. That's the thing with corrections. You want it to mean something. So I don't remember what level I started at, but I think I had to tap 5 different times. So I ended up getting, I think, up to like 85. And he was like, oh, got it. Got off of me, didn't get back on. So that was one moment that made a huge difference because it's another way to, one, set a clear boundary with a dog who has just been practicing super pushy behavior for his whole life. And two, it de-escalates him. So the thing I have found with situations like this with dogs like him who are just like, I want to do this. And then when you take that option away of like jumping up on me and being really pushy when I don't want you up in my space, there is a time and place for that. But with him, it's just, it would be feeding into that anxious, manic excitement, which I don't want. So when we can minimize that in one big situation, it trickles the effects of that, which are good. It's a good effect, trickles into the walk, kennel time, place time. A good example of this is, well, a good example of you don't have to address the actual thing you're struggling with. It could be something else. An example, let me take a little sip. An example of this is he was known to, let me pull up. He was known to be super worked up when it comes to the vacuum cleaner. And multiple times the owner told me, please be careful of this. I don't want him to bite you, but he's bitten her before, just because he was so like amped up about, and then the vacuum cleaner would come up and he'd get even more amped up. And that energy has to go somewhere, and it would go towards her as a bite. So, and I haven't seen any aggressive stuff. I've seen him bite the leash in overexcitable, amped up moments on the walk twice. But I'm never like nervous that he's going to bite me. He just doesn't give me that vibe. If he did, I would have him muzzled, or I really don't work with dogs who are human aggressive, but I could see how, he's nipped at daycare workers at the doggy daycare, because if he isn't told to calm down and he's practicing that excited, amped up energy, it has to go places, and sometimes it's the person next to him. So one thing that she said is if he's stressed when he sees me pick up the cat or turn on the vacuum or hears the neighbor's dog, he goes into quote unquote a psychotic state, and will actually bite me uncontrollably. Goes crazy when he hears the garage door go up and my boyfriend coming home, jumps on people and has no recall. Okay, so the thing that I did, and you can see this in his highlight, again, JAX over on Instagram, is so I was going for a walk. This was, I think, on Monday, and I wanted to call the owner. And so just to like talk things through, communication to me is really important to me with the board and train program, because again, this is not about just me and the dog. The owner is a big part of it. So I wanted to talk to her on the phone, and we were talking through some other things. Like I wanted to know, is he always whining at your house? Like that's just something we didn't really talk about. And then towards the end of the walk, when I was almost home, she reminded me again about the vacuum cleaner, and she said, just please be careful, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I really don't think he's going to freak out with me. The reason I said that is not because I've addressed it. I have not brought out the vacuum cleaner. It's because I've set boundaries in other areas on the walk. We've already said no to reactivity in a big way. What she's describing with the vacuum cleaner, and if you're struggling with this, it's reactivity towards the vacuum cleaner. That's what it is. So reactivity towards that, reactivity towards people, reactivity on the walk towards dogs. It's all reactivity. So I've already addressed that on the walk. We still have stuff to work through, of course, still do. But I don't think he's going to freak out over it. So, and I said that to her, and I was like, who knows? I mean, I promise I'll have a safety precaution in place. So I come in, I put him on place, because after a walk is good because, we've drained some energy. It was just a normal walk. but it's a good time to do place or any kind of calming stuff after a walk, after some kind of exercise. So I put him on place, tether his leash to a doorknob so that, excuse me, even if he gets off a place or wants to, bark or lunge at me or something, that is the safety measure. He can't get that far off a place. And sure enough, I bring the vacuum out and he's a little whiny, but no barking, no lunging, none of that. And so that's just an example of the power of boundaries in other areas of your dog's life. So someone asked about reactivity towards like TV. So I'll talk about my setup for that. Pretty straightforward, but just reassuringly, or I want to reassure you that the steps that you're doing it are, it's what I would do. So, okay. So all that to say, that was a really great thing to see. He was still kind of whiny. And to me, my trainer brain is like, okay, that's nice, but we still have so much work to do because he's still amped up. He's excited about seeing the vacuum cleaner, where my next goal for him with the vacuum cleaner is to have him off of place to see how he does, to correct for any like barking or lunging towards the vacuum cleaner or me. But really, I don't think he will towards me because, and who knows, I don't know. It's not like he looks at me like some like alpha, whatever, but we've just done a lot together where I create boundaries. On the walk is a big one, and that makes a big difference. He can't jump on me. He knows that now. So with the vacuum, what I would love expectation wise, like vision wise, is for him to be off a place, to hear the vacuum come out and to know he needs to go over to place and just relax. So that's a big thing to ask of him right now, but small moments will help with that. So for me, it would look like exposure to the vacuum cleaner, probably daily while he's on place, maybe for the rest of this week through the weekend. And then maybe next week I'll try where he's off a place and I turn on the vacuum and see how he does. So adding in some more realistic things where it's not just he's on place and having the vacuum on, that's great. But realistically, if someone brings out the vacuum, I want him to know that he can't attack it. That's a big no-no, and he should go over to place so he can have that job to focus on. So that's kind of what my goal is to do with him that I think will be really helpful. And yeah, that's what's been working. Let me say with him on the walk, one thing I wanted to talk about is on our walk today, we went on a longer walk and it was about an hour, which I usually don't do with dogs. I'm in Orlando, Florida. It's hot here, but right now it is super dreamy weather. And I've been wanting to, every day I have like a step goal. And so I wanted to get in the majority of my steps this morning. And it's a great opportunity when I have a working breed dog who could benefit from a longer walk. So on the walk, one thing that I started to work on with him that I've never done with any dogs before is creating a different command for walking, like a loose leash walk, but not in heel. So heel, and then I've been saying loose as like a command to just have him in my bubble, kind of like if I was off leash with him or had like a long line leash on, where I like dogs to walk in my bubble, not to be too far. But with this, I had our hands-free leash that we sell. I'll link it in the show notes. It's my favorite leash because you can hold it or you can not hold it and practice your off-leash skills. So I did this with him. We came across like 12 dogs. It was so great. So I treated it like a hike. Like I feel like people are so cool when they live in states and cities where you have like hiking trails. We don't really have that. So I treated this like that. And I've heard of people doing that before where it's like they'll say with me or something like that, where the dog has more freedom. And then when they see a dog or person on the trail, they'll have the dog walk with them. So for me, I did heel. So I would tap on tone and have him come into like the heel position when we walk past a dog. And then when we would pass, I would give some leash guidance away from me and say loose. And just to see how he does. This could either be a terrible idea or one, it really helped me enjoy the walk because he is so pushy with heels sometimes. And I find that I don't train from the best place when I am feeling like I constantly have to be on a dog. So what I found on this walk, one, I enjoyed it so much because it was treated more as like a long line off leash practice kind of a walk, where we did practice heel, but then also some like just walk with me, loosely kind of a thing. So we'll see. My thing always is, okay, that works well for me. Will that really be helpful for the owner? We'll see. But I am, of course, working on heel because that 100% is helpful for owners and their transition back home so that the dog has a very clear thing, a clear command that the owner can use on the walk to add clarity to any situation. But that was really fun on the walk this morning. So I just wanted to share in case, I don't know, maybe it kind of helps you think of different ways to do things. I really enjoyed the walk, which is always feedback for me that, oh, this is a good idea with this dog, with this particular dog. This combo of looser walking and heel is really helpful. And he did great walking past dogs. There's still some excitement stuff, so I'll kind of see how that goes. But it was a fun experiment, and I think I'll do it again because that's what I would do with our personal dogs. And now him struggling with reactivity just adds a whole other level to it where maybe that will be confusing. But what I saw with him, which is really interesting, and I think this just speaks to his breed and how he really is smart in a stupid way, where it's just, he's so smart, it's annoying because you can tell he knows what he should be doing. So like with this, which can kind of backfire by the way, but with this, I could tell when he heard tone, he was like, okay, cool, and got back in heel. And then I'd say loose and give some leash guidance. And he would just like walk just a foot or two away from me. And it was just so fun, like kind of, I don't know. I don't really do tricks with dogs. I feel like place is a really great trick. So, but that was really fun for me. So anyway, that is what's going on with him. I hope it is helpful for you in some way. One thing I did want to mention, because I know trainers listen to this, is that I usually do a midway session, and I love my midway sessions with the board and train. But with him, I called the owner yesterday and I just said, I don't think the midway session is a good idea for him because one, the midway sessions are always, it's mainly for one, I know owners want to see their dog, but it's really good feedback for me to see how does a dog respond to the owner. Because again, it's not about how they are with me. I know I can get certain results, but this dog is not going to live with me forever. So it's important to include the owner in the process so they can see, so I can see how does the dog respond? Is he much more pushy with her than me? It's just good feedback. One, because I can start talking about things about that more with the owner. It can be more of a focus. And two, expectation wise, the owner knows, okay, my dog is a little bit pushy. This is how my dog sees me. I can prepare for that. So it's like a mental thing, really. But for me, I'm finding with him, I know how he's going to respond when he sees his owner. I know he's going to be super whiny. And I think I would rather not be following through with the e-collar a lot for whiny stuff during the midway session. I would rather have another full week to get him around more stuff, boost his confidence, get him to a place where he is much less whiny, much calmer, which I know is possible, and then bring the owner back into the picture and see how things go. Because I also offer help after the board and train, so it's not like 2 weeks and I never see you again. So I'm not really worried about that, but I just feel like it's in his best interest to have some more time working on stuff and getting the mindset right so that I can bring them back together and it's a little easier. Really, that's what it is. Okay. Oh, geez. I don't like doing super long podcasts, but I'm going to go over some questions that you had. Because I love that you asked me questions. Thank you. Okay. So what are your thoughts on dogs like JAX taking herding lessons for an outlet? So I've never worked with a dog who's ever done that. I don't know if they have that. She lives not far from here. I'm totally into that. I think everything is worth trying. That is my motto. Try it. If it, you know, makes you feel like it's a good outlet, great. If you feel like it just gets your dog more worked up and he's practicing more excitement than calmness, then I would say it's probably not the best thing. Like for me, what I'm finding with him is giving him some kind of an outlet exercise wise. So I'm recommending to the owner, it's like homework if she can find one for a good price. I think her mom is going to give her one, which is so great. She should get a bike because I think he is so good when he has some kind of job like that, like jogging next to you on the bike, just to drain some of that energy because he is genetically predispositioned? I don't know how you say that, but genetically he needs a job. He is just so drivey, so it just helps him be at his best. So I'm not a huge like tire your dog out so they behave better. It's more this would really help him be at his best. So why not add that into the mix? So the herding stuff, I just don't know. I think it's worth a try, but I also don't know if that would help him calm down overall. And that's really been my goal for him. Whenever I'm working with a dog who's very overexcitable, reactive, and it's all laced with some anxiety, the biggest focus for me is how can we add more calmness into his day? The e-collar helps us interrupt that anxious loop with the whining, the barking. But then it's, okay, how can we nurture that calmer mindset? So that's place, kennel time, after some activity. So the combo of that is really helpful. I don't know if getting him into herding lessons would help, but who am I to say? I don't know. I think everything is worth trying. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, how do you decide when to train place time versus crate time with JAX? So a lot of times I like to do place time after a walk. But what I've been doing with JAX is because he does like a whistle whining when he's panting, and I prefer to not have him on place when he's doing that. So what I've been doing is after like our longer walk in the morning, because it's usually cooler, I'll put him in the kennel for some calm time, probably like a couple of hours. And then in the afternoon, I'll do some place time after like some backyard time of going potty, nothing too crazy with physical stuff, but just some free time, so that he's not doing that panting. And some dogs might pant when they're just anxious. It's just a way that their anxiety kind of works itself out of their body. That's how I envision it. So that can be a side effect of putting a dog who's anxious on place. They might start panting. With him, he doesn't really do it unless he's been doing something active. So that's how I kind of do it, where he is great in the kennel, so I take advantage of that. Like that's just such a good routine to give him and just reinforce. And then I'll do place a couple of other times during the day. That's how I do it with him personally. It can be different for, like, if I had another dog, I might do place way more than kennel time. Or if a dog is struggling with kennel time, I might focus on more kennel time because I want to reinforce that that is a new routine. I want them to get stronger with it. So I would add it in more than place time in your home. So it's just, hope that makes sense. How are you managing the reactivity with the e-collar? As an Aussie mom, I love following with Jax's progress. So I actually tagged another podcast episode in my stories on Instagram for this question. And hopefully what I shared in here is helpful. If not, message me on Instagram and let me know if you have any other questions, and hopefully I can help. What is the ideal amount of daily exercise for a dog like Jax? Like, how long do you bike together daily? So what I've been doing with him, and this is just based on my routine, my schedule, I like to, if I bike with him, it's either in the morning or the afternoon. I usually only bike with him once because I do want to practice walking with him. I also like to get steps in. So to me, walking a dog just helps me do that. And I get to work on something that an owner will do more often. There's so much value in a calmer walk. So I do want to practice that. So with him, one, because our weather is really great in Orlando right now, so it's cooler, I either do it in the morning for like, it might be like 15, 20 minutes, or in the afternoon or later afternoon. One, because I like to bike him over to a different neighborhood where there's basketball courts and people getting out of school. So there's more distractions. So we'll go over there and I'll have him like lay down in a down. And I find that that's just really great exposure work. My favorite way to add in training is when I add it into something that I'm doing with him already. So it's some kind of activity. It's a walk, it's a bike ride, it's going in the car somewhere, which we haven't done yet. She told me he's not good in the car, which does not surprise me. So I'm holding off on that until next week because I really want to work on his mindset stuff before doing that. But yeah, so the biking thing, I mean, you can do that twice a day if you want. You can replace a walk. I'm not like I don't know. There's so much information out there about like, well, you shouldn't bike with a dog, or you should only walk your dog an hour or longer. And my thing is, do what you can. I think if you are listening to this episode, this podcast, you are already doing more than the average dog owner. So I don't think that you are someone who is just never walking your dog, never exercising your dog, unless you're really struggling with reactivity, and that can make walks more challenging. But for a dog like JAX, and what I will recommend to the owner, which hopefully she gets the bike, is maybe replace one of the walks, maybe in the morning, with a bike ride, 15, 20 minutes, because it's more efficient than a walk. So you can get in more, it's like a more intense kind of a exercise for him than a walk, and then do a walk in the afternoon or something like that. So that's what I would say. It's really based on when I want to work with him. And since we have our personal dogs and I have a pretty good schedule of working with a training dog, taking a break so I can be with my dogs and Bobby, and then working with the dog and then taking a break. So that's what it looks like for him. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Okay, and then I'm going to answer a couple of questions about your dogs. So helping in-home reactivity at the TV and people or dogs walking in front of the house. So whenever I'm working with a dog who's reactive in the house, one, I want to teach what the place command means and add it in daily. Practice the skill that you want your dog to be able to do when the distractions happen. So like with Jax right now, a great example is I am having him practice place once or twice a day, where it's a duration place. So it's 1 to 2 hours at a time, so that he knows what, so like if he pops off a place, I guide him back over. So we're creating that new routine of what place means and what you're supposed to do when you're on place. Nothing. Lay down. That's it. And then you can start to add in more distractions, like the vacuum cleaner, turning, dog, like I'll look up on YouTube dogs barking or the dog whisper. Love watching OG dog whisper episodes because there's always so many distractions. And it's really, I like hearing Cesar Millan talk to owners. Now that I'm a dog trainer, it's all very, very relatable and helpful. So when I'm working with a dog who is reactive towards sounds and things in the house or outside of the house, solidifying what place means, the place command, is so, so crucial. And I'll add, we have a place command freebie guide. I'll put that in the show notes as well. So you can get a head start on it and kind of get a really good idea of what place looks like and how to introduce it to your dog. But add place into your daily schedule every single day. And then you can start to add in more distractions. And usually what happens is that it's not as big of a deal as it was before. Not to say your dog won't bark or things like that, but it probably will be a little less than before, because you've created some boundaries with your dog using the target of place. I just love it because it's a target to work off of. So another way that you can do this is have your dog off of place. I would have a long line leash on. One, your dog should understand what the e-collar means. So please introduce the e-collar. Again, you can get it. You can teach your dog how, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm talking a lot, so my words are getting a little jumbly, or maybe that's just in my head. E-collar starter guide. Our e-collar starter guide can help you train your dog and teach them what the e-collar means, so you can use it for all of these different things. So just wanted to say that. So what I'll do is have a dog with a long line leash on. They have some more freedom in the house where they're off of place. And I'll either have like our front door window open and front door shade open. And if some dogs are walking past, they see the dogs, they bark. I say no, correct on the e-collar. Then I tap on tone, recall. I recall them over and put them on place. So that's another way to do it, where it's more like realistic, where your dog is off of place, because dogs are not always on place. But that is the sequence. Say no to the reactivity, recall, over to place. So this is why practicing it daily is really important. So like in your backyard, or adding it in your house to practice with place. And then the place command. You want to solidify those things so that you can use it in the more high pressure moments. And that is what I would do. So I was talking with some owners in a virtual coaching call the other day, which, by the way, I offer those. They're 30 minutes where we can talk about whatever you want, trainers and owners. And it's just, I can give more personalized advice for you for your particular situation. So they have a dog, and he asked a great question. where he said their dog is reactive towards, they live in an apartment, so if he hears dogs outside or when the husband's coming home, that kind of thing. And he was like, well, if the place command is supposed to be like their safe space, if you correct them for barking when they're on place, doesn't that kind of make it an unsafe place? And I thought that was a great perspective because I could see how you would think that. To me, the place command is not a safe space. It's a calm space. So there's a little bit of a difference. It can end up being a safe space where your dog wants to get on place. I mean, I see that all the time. But initially, it's really just where we want them to practice calmness. It's not necessarily safe. So when you correct your dog for barking when they're on place, you're taking away that option of like being really excitable and doing the thing you don't want them to do. When you take away that option, then the other thing is like, well, what can I do now? Nothing. So then it's easier for them to practice calmness eventually when you've taken away the option of doing the thing you don't want them to do, the barking, so that then it's like, okay, well, now I can't do, what am I supposed to do? Nothing. And that's what we want. So that is what I would say for the reactivity stuff. Have a long line leash on for extra guidance. The last thing I want you to do is use the e-collar and your dog run off from you. The biggest thing with that is it's usually not that your dog is actually fearful of the e-collar. It's just you're not giving guidance on what you want them to do after a correction. So that's really crucial. You want to have the leash so you can give guidance to them after you correct for something on the walk, in your house, anywhere really. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. My voice is, I feel like it's getting scratchy. That is insane. I don't talk very much, I guess, during the day. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Walking Dog Training. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And I hope that you got your cup of joe as you listened, or you're getting it now or after, whatever. Okay. Thank you for being here. Till next time.